With the landslip cleared after the rain bomb in February and March, and the line between Thelmere to Picton now reopened since May by the Australian Rail Track Corporation, Transport Heritage New South Wales's 2022 steam program has finally begun, with 3801 pulling the Southern Highlander from Picton to Moss Vale on Saturday, June 4th and Sunday, June 5th, 2022. Here we see 3801 waiting for its train at Picton on the Sunday. This is the first time in 15 years since 3801 had pulled a fare-paying passenger train in the Southern Highlands. Last time we saw 3801 in this part of New South Wales was back in September 2020, when the locomotive was on one of its crew training runs, which can be found in our November 2020 edition. 3801 had previous Southern Highlander trips planned in the year 2020 to 2021, but of course one was canned in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and another was cancelled in 2021 due to the derailment of a heritage carriage at Revesby Station, while a further two later in the year was cancelled due to the outbreak of the Delta variant of COVID, resulting in the second lockdown of New South Wales. As we wait for the diesel locomotives from the Sydney leg of the journey, a CountryLink Explorer set is seen passing through. At last, 4501 and 4490 are seen pulling in to switch the train over for 3801. The two diesels will make their way to their base at Thelmere before they take the train to Sydney once 3801 returns. Meanwhile, 3801 now makes its way to Bowral and Moss Vale. Next we see the locomotive charging through Yerenball. Then we see it arriving at Moss Vale. After being admired by its admirers, 3801 now gets ready to change its train, ready for its return journey to Picton.
Stay in the order the loco goes.
as 3801 shunted its train on the refuge line. 3801 waits for a freight train to pass by before it heads off to the triangle loop outside of the station and then take on water from a standpipe.
Henry, I just made another hog.
Later, we caught up with 3801 on its return journey at Baradu, as it makes its way to Bowral to pick up its passengers there. Then we see it rocketing through Tamor. We return to Picton and see 3801, this time uncoupled from its carriages, making its way to the track that will be switched for its return to Thelmia. .4490 and 4501 make their way to the carriages to take the passengers back to Sydney. 3 months had passed since we last saw 3801, and on Sunday, September 18th, 2022, we see the locomotive making its way to Moss Vale, with a stop at Bowral, where at this time of year is the annual Bowral Tulip Time Festival, the first time the event had been publicly held since the COVID-19 pandemic. The locomotive is seen departing Picton. After 4916 and 4201, both vintage diesel locomotives from the New South Wales Rail Museum had delivered the passengers from the Sydney leg of the journey. We then caught up with the locomotive at Bargo. Our shot is almost similar to the 1974 classic A Steam Train Passes. Then we see the engine pulling into Bowral for passengers to see the town and the tulips. As 3801 awaits for departure to Moss Vale, Pacific National 8255 is seen passing through. This is where we conclude the journey with 3801, departing Bowral for Moss Vale to get ready for its return journey to Picton, so the two diesels 4916 and 4201 can take the train back to Sydney. On Saturday, March 19, 1932, the Sydney Harbour Bridge was opened, connecting both the north and south end of Sydney. Construction of the iconic structure was contracted by English firm Dorman Long & Co. in 1924, the same firm that had constructed Tyne Bridge in the UK that linked between Newcastle upon Tyne and Gateshead. The work was overseen by John Bradfield, who had also designed Circular Quay railway station. During construction, many had feared that the arches would not align, but those fears were laid to rest in August 1930 when the two arches were connected perfectly. Sadly, 16 workers had died during the construction due to the working conditions at the time. The 4 pylons surrounding the bridge were constructed from granite, which came from a granite quarry in the far south coast town of Moruya. The bridge was supposed to be opened by Jack Lang, who was Premier of New South Wales between 1925 to 1927, and again between 1930 to 32, before being dismissed by New South Wales Governor Sir Philip Game at the climax of the 1932 constitutional crisis. But the opening of the bridge was disturbed by Francis de Groot, who had cut the ribbon before Jack Lang did, although one eyewitness said at the time that the hooves of the horses that de Groot was riding on had broken the ribbon. He was later arrested, and his ceremonial sword was confiscated. De Groot said that he was in protest that the Governor of New South Wales, Sir Philip, was not invited to the opening. After that, the ribbon was retied and Jack Lang had officially opened the bridge, signifying a triumph in the decade that was known as the Great Depression. Now, 90 years later, the bridge is still standing, and is now one of the most internationally recognized locations that represents Australia. To celebrate the bridge's 90th anniversary on Sunday, September 25th, 2022, 3801 will be crossing the bridge for the first time to give a salute in regards to its 90th, and to hype up the long-awaited return of the Transport Heritage Expo in Sydney during the October long weekend, which will be our November edition this year. Before we see history be made, we see some harbour life on this beautiful, sunny Sunday morning. Here we see a Sydney commuter train over the bridge heading north. The Australian and Aboriginal flags had returned to full mast after the 10-day mourning period over the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, who was Australia's head of state. A sailboat and a ferry are seen passing under the bridge. The iconic Luna Park looks on at Milson's Point as more boats pass through. The Sydney Opera House is seen peeping over the roofs of Pier 1. The Opera House was opened by the late Queen Elizabeth in 1973. Prior to that, it was once Fort Macquarie Tram Depot, which was built in 1902 and was sadly demolished in 1958 for the construction of an iconic Australian attraction. More trains are seen passing through, but after filming this one, all trains were suspended for 3801 and Red Rattler F1's appearance on the bridge. helicopter is in position ready to film the moment in history. At last, we are to witness another page in the making for 3801's history book. For the first time since 1993, steam had crossed the Sydney Harbour Bridge once again, and 3801 had become the first member of its class to cross the iconic steel bridge. .3801 crossing the bridge was supposed to happen on the bridge's 90th anniversary in March, but due to damage on the line leading to Picton from Thelmere caused by the massive rainstorm between February and March, it had to be postponed. .3801 will now depart the bridge and will head towards the packed platform of Nilsson's Point before heading towards Lavender Bay carriage sidings to be serviced before heading to Hornsby ready for its return journey to Sydney to drop off its booked passengers.
That's a video, so much fun coming in super fun. Yeah. Allah, it's good, man. Let's go. What time did you get it?
A once-in-a-lifetime event. Probably that will never happen again. Meanwhile, Red Rattler F1 is seen passing over the bridge as well, almost reminiscent to the final run of the single-deck suburban trains in 1992, which was commemorated by Transport Heritage New South Wales in January earlier this year. With the special run now completed, commuter trains resume on the North Shore line. This train is waiting for its clear path until F1 makes its way through Milsons Point Station. We say farewell to the bridge and make our way to Sydney Central Station to see 8649 from Sydney Electric Train Society, who had been assisting during the day in its resplendent candy livery, leading 3801 in its train on Platform 1. After a long, momentous day that will now live on in history, 3801 will now make its way to its base at Thelmere, while 8649 will await its path for its base in Sydney. This is where we conclude Rail Around New South Wales for October 2022.